Hey everybody, welcome to this month's question of the month. If you'd like to submit your own question, of course, go to yoganatomy.com/myquestion. I've got a bit of a backlog at the moment, but I'll get to it eventually. All right, so this month's question comes from Carmel. Could you please define the difference between the fuzz, as described by Gil Hedley in his Fascia video, and scar tissue, and how this may affect one's yoga practice? All right, so for those of you, if you don't know who Gil Hedley is, she's referring to the fuzz speech. So if you go to YouTube and you type in the fuzz speech, you'll get Gil Hedley's video that she's referring to, which is a great video, highly recommended. Check it out. What Gil's talking about in his video is the long, slow growth of fascia between layers of fascia or layers of connective tissue. It's more generalized. It's more, in a sense, systemic. Of course, it's going to be based on, your movement patterns, what you typically do, what you don't do, how you move, how you don't move. And so you're going to get more of a buildup or less of a buildup of this fuzz depending on what you do. Contrary or different from that is scar tissue. Scar tissue is much more specific. It's not really a long, slow process. It's more like, an injury happens, maybe let's call it a cut for a second just to keep it simple, or a tearing of tissue. The scar tissue comes in and it binds that area together in we'll say, a relatively short amount of time. Of course, it could be ongoing if you don't do anything to put pressure through that scar tissue, either as it's healing or shortly after it's completed its process. You're going to have more restriction in that area. From a palpation point of view, you can feel it as a more dense area locally, specifically in that area. And it doesn't give in the same way. And interestingly, on this subject, I was at the Fascial Research Congress this past year, and Dr. Jim Barteau from France, who did another video, which you can look up on YouTube, called Strolling Under the Skin some years ago, has a whole series of new videos, one of which is specifically about scar tissue. I haven't seen it myself, but it's super specific about that, and he's showing the connective tissue, and in this case, probably the scars, from under the skin. So you can get a sense of what that reorientation of of connective tissue looks like as it's under the skin. Now, in terms of impact on your practice, the generalized long, slow fuzz stuff generally reduces range of motion systemically. Whereas the very specific scar tissue, it's going to be dependent on the size of the scar, the depth of that scar, what else it's associated with, if it, depending on the nature of the trauma or the injury that caused the scar tissue to happen, etc. So there's no specific answer other than to say that the restriction that you would probably find from scar tissue is going to be much more localized compared to the fuzz, which is going to be more generalized. I hope that helped a little bit. All right, I do talk about connective tissue, of course, in Functional Anatomy of Yoga, and scar tissue specifically. So get a copy if you don't have one. Otherwise, I'll see everybody next time.